Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES horizon. He held a cup of coffee in his hands and looked out at the stars. The ship was humanity's first real deep space explorer. It had a new, faster-than-light drive that nobody really understood yet. "Ready for the test jump, Captain," said Lisa Chen from her station. She was the navigation officer and one of the smartest people Jake knew. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "How long until we reach Proxima Centauri?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours if everything works right," Lisa replied. She looked at her numbers again. Something felt wrong, but she could not figure out what. Alex Rodriguez, the chief engineer, walked onto the bridge. He wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and smiled. "The new drive is running perfectly. All systems are green." Jake nodded. "Good. Let's see what this baby can do." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her science station. She was excited about the trip. As the ship's expert on alien life, she hoped they might find something interesting near Proxima Centauri. Even bacteria would make her happy. "Jump in 10 seconds, Lisa announced. She pressed the final sequence of buttons. The stars outside suddenly stretched into long lines. The ship shook a little, then everything went quiet. They were traveling faster than light for the first time in human history. Jake sipped his coffee. "How does it feel to make history, people?" "Pretty normal, actually," Alex said with a laugh. But Lisa was frowning at her instruments. The numbers did not look right. They were not heading toward Proxima Centauri anymore. The computer showed they were moving in a completely different direction. "Captain," she said slowly, "we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Jake asked. He did not sound worried yet. "The kind where I made a big mistake in the calculations," Lisa said. Her face was red with embarrassment. "We're not going to Proxima Centauri. We're heading somewhere else entirely." Jake looked at her for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, that's interesting. Where are we going?" "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "Somewhere no human has ever been before." Alex checked his instruments. "The drive is still working fine. We can turn around once we drop out of hyperspace." Dr. Williams looked excited instead of worried. "This could be even better than Proxima Centauri. We might discover something completely new." "That's one way to look at it," Jake said. He finished his coffee. "When do we drop back to normal space?" "In about 30 seconds, Lisa replied. The ship shuddered again. The stretched stars suddenly snapped back to normal points of light. But these were not the stars they knew. The constellations were all wrong. "Where are we?" Jake asked. Lisa worked frantically at her station. "I'm not sure. The star patterns don't match anything in our database." Then Alex noticed something on his sensors. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake walked over to Alex's station. On the screen were dozens of massive objects. They were clearly artificial. Ships, but ships bigger than anything humans had ever built. Some were as large as cities. "Are those spaceships?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. And they're fighting each other." As if to prove his point, one of the giant ships fired a beam of energy at another. The beam was bright enough to light up their bridge. The target ship's shields flared with rainbow colors as they absorbed the hit. "Wow," Dr. Williams said. "Look at the size of those vessels. The technology must be incredible." More ships appeared, on their sensors. Smaller ones, but still much larger than the horizon. They moved between the giant ships like fighters in an old war movie. "This is amazing," Jake said. He did not sound scared at all. "Lisa, can you get us a better view? I want to see how their weapons work." "Captain," Alex said carefully, "should we not be running away right now?" Jake looked at him with surprise. "Why? This is the most interesting thing humans have ever seen." "Dr. Williams, are you recording all of this?" "Every second," she replied happily. "The energy readings are off the charts. These civilizations must have been traveling through space for thousands of years. The battle was incredible to watch. Giant ships traded devastating attacks while smaller vessels darted between them. Explosions lit up the darkness of space in brilliant colors. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The weapon designs are fascinating, Alex said, studying his readings. They're using some kind of plasma technology we've never seen before. Jake nodded. This is better than any movie in our database. Suddenly, all the fighting stopped. Every alien ship, large and small, turned to face the tiny human vessel. Massive communication dishes swiveled in their direction. I think they noticed us, Lisa said. The ship's communication system came alive with noise. Voices speaking in languages no human had ever heard filled the bridge. The computer tried to make sense of it but failed. 17 different languages, Dr. Williams reported. The computer can't translate any of them. What do you think they're saying? Alex asked. Jake listened to the alien voices for a moment. Probably something like, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" "How do we answer?" Lisa asked. "We don't speak their languages." Jake thought for a moment, then walked over to the communication station. He pressed the transmit button. "There," he said in a friendly voice. "We're from Earth. Sorry to interrupt your battle. Mind if we watch? This looks really interesting." The alien voices stopped. There was complete silence from all the ships. Alex stared at Jake. "Did you just say hi to an alien space fleet?" "Seemed polite," Jake replied. "They were here first?" The silence in space lasted for almost 10 minutes. Jake Morrison finished making a fresh pot of coffee while dozens of alien warships pointed their weapons at his tiny ship. Still no response from the aliens, Lisa Chen reported from her station. "Maybe. They're having a meeting," Jake suggested. "I would be if some unknown ship just appeared in the middle of my battle." Dr. Kate Williams was studying the alien vessels through the ship's cameras. "Look at the different designs. I count at least 2 completely different styles of ship. This isn't just one species fighting itself. This is 2 different civilizations." Alex Rodriguez nodded from his engineering station. "The bigger ships have more advanced shields, but the smaller ones are faster. Classic fleet tactics." "Which side do you think is winning?" Jake asked with genuine curiosity. "Hard to say," Alex replied. "The big ships have more firepower, but the small ships have better movement. It's pretty evenly matched." Finally, their communication system crackled to life. A deep voice spoke in heavily accented English. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Thexara of the Imperial Fleet. Identify yourself immediately." Jake picked up the microphone. "Hello, Admiral. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon. Nice to meet you." There was another long pause. Then a different voice came through the speakers. This one sounded rougher, more aggressive. "I am Commander Veltar, of the Liberation Forces. How do you know our language, human?" "We don't, actually," Jake replied honestly. "Our computer is pretty good at figuring out languages. It just learned yours by listening to you talk." Lisa looked impressed. She had not known their translation system was that advanced. "What is your purpose here?" Admiral Thexara demanded. "Are you allied with the rebels?" "Rebels?" Jake asked. "Oh, you mean Commander Veltar's people? No, we're not allied with anyone. We just got here by accident." Commander Veltar's voice came back. "By accident? You expect us to believe that?" "It's true," Jake said. "Our navigator made a mistake with the calculations. We were trying to get to Proxima Centauri, but we ended up here instead." Dr. Williams leaned over to whisper in Jake's ear. "Ask them about their conflict. This could be valuable information." Jake nodded. "So you're having a civil war. How long has this been going on? Your technology is really impressive." Both alien commanders seemed confused by the question. "Admiral?" Thexara finally answered. "The rebellion has lasted for 3 years, but why do you care, human? Which side do you serve?" "Neither," Jake said. "We just got here, remember? But I'm curious, what's the fight about?" "The Empire oppresses the outer worlds," Commander Veltar said angrily. "They take our resources and give nothing back." "The outer worlds refuse to pay their proper taxes," Admiral Thexara countered. "They want the benefits of Imperial protection without the responsibilities." Jake sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Sounds like you both have valid points. Have you tried talking about it instead of shooting at each other?" The silence that followed was even longer than before. "Talking?" Commander Veltar finally said. "Sure," Jake replied. "You're both intelligent beings. You both want what's best for your people. There's probably a solution that works for everyone. Alex whispered to Lisa. Is the captain really trying to solve an alien civil war? Looks like it, she whispered back. Admiral Thexara's voice came through the speakers again. You suggest we negotiate with rebels? Why not? Jake asked. We do it all the time on Earth. Most conflicts can be resolved if people just sit down and talk honestly about what they want. Dr. Williams was taking notes frantically. This was the first real diplomatic contact between humans and aliens, and it was happening in the most casual way possible. Would you be willing to meet face to face? Jake continued. I could host you both on my ship. We have excellent coffee. Coffee? Commander Veltar asked. It's a drink, Jake explained. Helps people think clearly. Perfect for negotiations. The two alien commanders spoke in their own languages for several minutes. Jake waited patiently, occasionally commenting to his crew about the impressive weapon designs he could see on the alien ships. That plasma cannon is brilliant, he told Alex. Look at the energy efficiency. Much better than our old nuclear missiles. Finally, Admiral Thexara spoke again. We will meet on your vessel, human, but any treachery will be met with immediate destruction. Fair enough, Jake replied. Commander Veltar, are you willing to come too? I will attend, the rebel commander said cautiously. Great, Jake said cheerfully. Lisa, find us a nice quiet spot away from the battle. We don't want to get hit by a stray shot during the meeting. As the horizon moved away from the fighting, Dr. Williams approached Jake with a worried expression. Captain, are you sure about this? We're talking about beings who command fleets that could destroy entire solar systems. Jake looked at her with surprise. So? They're still people, Kate. They have problems. They want solutions. The size of their guns doesn't change that. Alex was working on modifications to their docking bay. I'm adapting our systems to handle alien vessels. Should be ready in an hour. Perfect, Jake said. I'll set up the conference room. Lisa, send both commanders. Our docking procedures. 2 hours later, Jake stood in the Horizon's small conference room, straightening his uniform. He had set up a simple table with 3 chairs and a pot of fresh coffee. Nervous? Dr. Williams asked. About what? Jake replied. We're just having a conversation. The first alien shuttle arrived. Admiral Thexara was tall and thin, with gray skin and large eyes. He wore an elaborate uniform covered in medals and insignia. 2 heavily armed guards followed him. The second shuttle brought Commander Veltar, who was shorter and more muscular than the Admiral. His species had different features, with darker skin and pointed ears. His uniform was simpler but practical. Both aliens stared at Jake with expressions he could not read. Welcome to the Horizon, Jake said with a smile. Please, sit down. Would you like some coffee? Deep in the heart of the Galactic Empire, on a world called SciFiPrime, Emperor Zarthul sat on his massive throne. The room around him was bigger than most human cities. Thousands of officials and nobles filled the space, all waiting for his words. But today, the Emperor was not thinking about laws or taxes. He was watching a recording that made no sense to him. On the giant screen in front of him, a small human ship floated peacefully between 2 war fleets. The human captain was drinking something from a cup and pointing at the alien weapons like he was watching a sports game. Play it again, the Emperor commanded. His advisors exchanged worried looks. This was the 5th time he had watched the same recording. The scene played out again. The human captain, Jake Morrison, cheerfully greeted 2 hostile fleets and invited their commanders for coffee. Then he somehow convinced them to stop fighting and talk about their problems instead. This is impossible, muttered Grand Admiral Kethfor. He was the Empire's greatest military leader, a veteran of hundreds of battles. No species behaves this way during first contact. Intelligence Director Yixara stepped forward. She was tall and thin, with silver skin and large black eyes. Her job was to study new species and predict how they would react to imperial power. Your Majesty, we have studied every first contact in imperial history. When new species meet our fleets, they follow predictable patterns. First fear, then submission, then negotiation. And these humans? The Emperor asked. They showed no fear at all, Yixara replied. No submission protocols, no requests for mercy or protection. They treated meeting a galactic superpower like meeting new neighbors. The Emperor watched the recording again. Captain Morrison was now sitting at a small table with Admiral Thexera and Commander Veltar. All three were holding cups of the human drink called coffee. What are they discussing? The Emperor asked. Trade agreements, Yixara said with disbelief. The humans convinced both commanders to establish joint mining operations in the disputed territories. They're sharing the profits equally. That's impossible, Grand Admiral Kethvor said. Those territories have been fought over for decades. How did they resolve it in one conversation? The human captain suggested something called basic conflict resolution, Yixara explained. He said that most fights happen because people want the same thing and don't realize they can share it. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. In his long life, he had conquered thousands of worlds. He had seen species beg for mercy, offer tribute, or fight desperately for their freedom. But he had never seen anything like this. Show me the latest reports, he commanded. New recordings appeared on the screen. The human ship had somehow convinced both fleets to attend something called a barbecue on a nearby asteroid. Humans and aliens were sitting around cooking food together and sharing stories. One human, identified as Chief Petty Officer Danny Cooper, was teaching alien warriors how to prepare Earth-style hamburgers. At the same time, he was discussing military tactics with commanders from both sides. The humans appear to have no concept of proper respect, Intelligence Director Yixara continued. They address our fleet commanders as equals. They offer advice on our technology without being asked. What kind of advice? The Emperor asked. Yixara looked embarrassed. One of them told Commander Veltar that his ship's power distribution was inefficient. Then he showed him how to improve it by 30%. Did the improvement work? Yes, Your Majesty. The Emperor sat back in his throne. This was getting stranger by the hour. There's more, Yixara said. The human scientist, Dr. Williams, has been asking detailed questions about our biology and culture. She seems more interested in learning about us than in our military power. And the others? Their engineer, Rodriguez, has been studying our hyperdrive technology. He claims our efficiency is terrible and wants to show us something called quantum field manipulation. Grand Admiral Kethvor looked frustrated. Your Majesty, these humans are disrupting the natural order. Species are supposed to fear imperial power. Instead, they're treating us like students. The Emperor watched more recordings. Captain Morrison was now sitting with both alien commanders, drawing diagrams on a piece of paper. They were designing a new type of space station that could serve both imperial and rebel territories. He's solving problems that our best minds have worked on for years, the Emperor said quietly, and he's doing it while eating alien food and making jokes. What should we do, Your Majesty? Yixara asked. The Emperor thought for a long moment. In 50,000 years of imperial history, nothing like this had ever happened. Every species they encountered followed the same pattern: resist, submit, integrate. The humans seemed to have skipped all those steps and gone straight to casual friendship. I want to meet them, the Emperor said finally. The entire throne room fell silent. The Emperor had not personally met with representatives of a new species in over 1,000 years, Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Kethvor said carefully. Is that wise? We don't understand these humans yet. They could be dangerous. Dangerous? The Emperor asked. They stopped a 3-year war in one afternoon. They turned enemies into friends with coffee and conversation. If that's dangerous, then our entire military philosophy is wrong. He stood up from his throne, something that made every person in the room bow deeply. Send them an invitation, the Emperor commanded. Tell them I would like to meet them personally. What reason should we give? Yixara asked. The Emperor thought about that. Usually, new species were summoned to demonstrate their submission to imperial power, but the humans would probably just offer to help improve the throne room's acoustics. Tell them I'm curious, he said finally. They seemed to like curiosity. As his advisors hurried to carry out his orders, the Emperor watched the recordings one more time. The humans were now playing some kind of game with the alien commanders. Everyone was laughing. 50,000 years, he said to himself. 50,000 years of the same patterns, the same responses, the same fear. And then these humans appear and act like galactic politics is just another problem to solve. He paused the recording on Captain Morrison's face. The human was smiling as he explained something to Admiral Thexera. Maybe it is just another problem to solve, the Emperor said quietly. 3 hours later, the invitation was sent. The Emperor waited to see how the humans would respond to a personal meeting with the ruler of the galaxy. Captain Morrison's reply came back within minutes. Sounds great. Can we bring the coffee? The stuff you serve here is terrible. For the first time in centuries, Emperor Zarthul laughed. The trip to SciFiPrime took 2 days in the horizon. Jake Morrison spent most of the time reading about Imperial history and drinking coffee. Dr. Kate Williams studied everything she could find about the Emperor's species. Alex Rodriguez worked on their engines, making small improvements he had learned from talking to the alien engineers. This place is huge, Lisa Chen said as they approached the Imperial capital. The planet was covered in massive cities that stretched from one horizon to the other. Giant space stations orbited overhead, each one bigger than Earth's moon. Look at those monuments, Dr. Williams said, pointing at enormous structures that rose from the planet's surface. Some of them must be 100 kilometers tall. Show-offs, Chief Danny Cooper said with a grin. He had insisted on coming along to see what alien architecture looked like up close. But you got to respect the engineering. The Imperial Palace was the biggest building any human had ever seen. It covered an entire continent and reached up into the planet's atmosphere. Thousands of ships moved around it like tiny insects. That's not a palace, Alex said. That's a small country. Their escort, a sleek Imperial cruiser, guided them to a landing bay. The bay itself was bigger than most human cities. Hundreds of alien ships were parked in neat rows, from tiny personal vehicles to massive diplomatic vessels. Where do we park this thing? Lisa asked. Their escort ship answered over the radio. Follow the blue lights to docking bay 7412. 7,000? Danny asked. How many docking bays do they have? Apparently more than 7,000, Jake replied. They were met at the docking bay by a group of Imperial officials. The leader was tall and elegant with purple skin and 4 arms. He wore robes that probably cost more than the horizon. I am Chancellor Dexmill, he announced formally. I will escort you to His Imperial Majesty. Nice to meet you, Jake said, shaking one of the Chancellor's hands. I'm Jake. This is Kate, Alex, Lisa, and Danny. Thanks for the invitation. The Chancellor looked confused. He was used to visiting dignitaries who bowed and spoke in formal language. The humans just stood there like they were meeting friends at a party. The walk to the throne room took 45 minutes. They passed through corridors that could fit entire city blocks, past walls covered in art from thousands of different worlds. Alien guards in elaborate uniforms stood at attention every few meters. This place must cost a fortune to heat, Danny observed, looking up at ceilings that disappeared into darkness. The artistic influences are fascinating, Dr. Williams said, taking pictures of everything. I can see styles from dozens of different civilizations. Alex was studying the construction. The structural engineering is impressive, but they could improve the energy efficiency with some basic modifications. Chancellor Dexmill walked faster, hoping to reach the throne room before the humans made any more casual observations about the Imperial Palace. Finally, they reached a set of doors that were 50 meters tall. The Chancellor stopped and turned to address them. You are about to meet Emperor Zarthul, ruler of 10,000 worlds, commander of fleets beyond counting. You will show proper respect and speak only when spoken to. Got it, Jake said. Be polite, no problem. The doors opened slowly, revealing the throne room. It was bigger than most human cities, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up to the clouds. Thousands of court officials filled the space, all wearing elaborate robes and jewelry. At the far end of the room, almost a kilometer away, sat the Emperor on a throne made from some kind of black crystal. He was enormous, even by alien standards, with golden skin and eyes that glowed like stars. "Wow," Jake said. "Talk about making an impression." The Chancellor led them down a long walkway toward the throne. Every step echoed in the massive space. Thousands of alien eyes watched them as they walked. "This is like walking through a museum," Dr. Williams whispered, looking at the incredible architecture. "A really expensive museum," Danny added. Finally, they reached the base of the throne. Chancellor Dexmill bowed deeply and spoke in a voice that carried throughout the room. "Your Imperial Majesty, I present the humans from the world called Earth, Emperor." Zarthul stood up slowly. He was even bigger than he had looked from a distance. His voice was deep and powerful, designed to make lesser beings tremble with fear. "We are Emperor Zarthul, ruler of 10,000 worlds, commander of fleets beyond counting, master of the Galactic Empire." Jake stepped forward with a slight nod. "Nice to meet you, Your Majesty. I'm Jake Morrison, captain of the Earthship Horizon. This is my crew, Kate, Alex, Lisa, and Danny." A ripple of shock went through the assembled court officials. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor as an equal. Several guards reached for their weapons, but the Emperor raised one hand to stop them. "Thank you for inviting us," Jake continued. "Your palace is incredible. How do you manage to govern so many worlds? The communication delays alone must be a nightmare." The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. In all his years of rule, no one had ever asked him about the practical challenges of governing a galactic empire. "It is complex," the Emperor said slowly. Dr. Williams stepped forward with her notebook. "Your Majesty, your species appears to be descended from apex predators. The cranial structure is fascinating. How did you develop such an advanced civilization with what looks like primarily carnivorous physiology?" More shocked whispers came from the court. The Emperor found himself actually thinking about the question instead of issuing orders. "My people were hunters," he said. "We learned to work together to bring down larger prey. That cooperation eventually led to civilization." "Remarkable," Dr. Williams said, taking notes. "The evolutionary path from predator to galactic leader. I'd love to study your historical records sometime." Danny was looking around the throne room with a critical eye. "This is solid construction work, but you could improve the acoustics with some strategic sound chambers. The echo is terrible. Want me to draw up some plans?" Chancellor Dexmill looked ready to faint. Chief Cooper was offering to redesign the Imperial throne room, but Emperor Zarthul was intrigued. "You believe our acoustics are inadequate?" "Not inadequate," Danny said. "Just inefficient. With a few modifications, you could reduce the echo and improve sound clarity by about 60%. The Emperor had ruled for thousands of years, but no one had ever offered to improve his throne room before. Most visitors were too busy being terrified to notice architectural details. Alex was studying the massive columns that held up the ceiling. "The load-bearing calculations must be incredible, but you could probably reduce the structural weight by 20% with modern materials." "Your engineers?" the Emperor asked. "Danny's our construction specialist," Jake explained. "Alex handles the technical stuff. They're good at solving problems." "What kind of problems?" Jake shrugged. "Any kind, really. Mechanical, structural, logistical. Most problems have solutions if you think about them the right way." The Emperor sat back down on his throne. This was not going the way Imperial audiences usually went. Normally, new species begged for mercy or offered tribute. These humans were offering to fix his ceiling. "You stopped a war in our territory," the Emperor said. "Well, Admiral Thexera and Commander Veltar stopped the war," Jake corrected. "We just suggested they talk to each other first." "It was that simple?" "Most conflicts are simpler than they look," Jake replied. "People usually want reasonable things. They just need help figuring out how to get them without fighting." Lisa spoke up for the first time. "The navigation charts they gave us are incredibly detailed. Your space traffic control systems must be amazing." The Emperor found himself smiling. These humans were treating the most formal ceremony in the galaxy like a casual conversation with friends. "Would you like to see more of the palace?" he asked. That would be great, Jake said. Kate wants to learn about your history, and Danny's already got ideas for improving the ventilation system. As they walked through the palace, Emperor Zarthul realized something that shocked him. For the first time in centuries, he was actually enjoying himself. Instead of listening to endless formal reports and ceremonies, he was having a real conversation about real problems with people who genuinely wanted to help. Your Majesty, Jake said as they walked through a gallery filled with art from across the galaxy. Have you ever considered that governing might be easier if you treated it less like ruling and more like problem-solving? The Emperor stopped walking. In all his years of power, no one had ever suggested that there might be a better way to run an empire. What do you mean? He asked. Jake gestured at the incredible artwork around them. You've got thousands of different species, each with their own needs and cultures. Instead of trying to control them all the same way, why not let them solve their own problems and just coordinate the big stuff? You mean delegate authority? Exactly. Focus on the things only you can do and let local leaders handle local issues. It works pretty well on Earth. Emperor Zarthul considered this. It was such a simple idea, but it had never occurred to him before. Would you be willing to help us implement such a system? He asked. Jake smiled. Sure, sounds interesting. Can we bring more coffee, though? The stuff you serve here really is terrible. 6 months after their accidental arrival, the UES Horizon had become the most famous ship in the galaxy. Jake Morrison woke up every morning in quarters that the Emperor had given him in the Imperial Palace. The rooms were huge and fancy, but Jake had moved most of the furniture to make space for a simple desk and a coffee machine. Morning report, Lisa Chen said as she entered his office. She carried a tablet full of updates from across the galaxy. How many problems do we need to solve today? Jake asked, pouring 2 cups of coffee. Only 12, Lisa replied with a smile. That's down from 20 yesterday. The transformation had been remarkable to watch. Jake's suggestion about federalism had spread through the empire like wildfire. Worlds that had been fighting for decades were now working together on joint projects. Dr. Kate Williams walked in carrying a stack of reports. The scientific exchange program is working better than we hoped. The Zelthari have shared their medical technology, and the Corvani have opened their archaeological sites to other species. Any problems? Jake asked. Just one. The hegemony is getting nervous about all this cooperation. They've asked to send envoys to meet with us. Jake nodded. The hegemony was another galactic power, smaller than the Empire but still very strong. They ruled through fear and strict control, the opposite of what the Empire was becoming. Alex Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, wiping grease off his hands. The new hyperdrive designs are ready for testing. The Imperial engineers are excited to try them out. How much improvement are we looking at? Jake asked. About 300% efficiency gain, Alex said casually. Plus, the ships will be faster and use less fuel. Dr. Williams shook her head in amazement. Alex talked about revolutionary advances in technology the way other people discussed the weather. Chief Danny Cooper's voice came through the communication system. Captain, the Emperor wants to show you the new throne room acoustics. The sound quality is perfect now. On our way, Jake replied. They walked through corridors that were still huge and impressive, but now felt more welcoming. The changes had been subtle but important. Better lighting, improved air circulation, and Danny's acoustic modifications had made the palace feel less like a monument and more like a place where people actually worked. Emperor Zarthul was waiting in the throne room with a group of his advisors. The room was still massive, but the terrible echo was gone. Conversations could now happen at normal volumes instead of formal shouting. The improvements are remarkable, the Emperor said. Chancellor Dexmill says government meetings are twice as efficient now. Happy to help, Danny replied. I've got some ideas for the ventilation system too, if you're interested. The Emperor had changed as much as his palace. He still wore his formal robes for ceremonies, but most days he dressed in simpler clothes and walked around talking to people instead of sitting on his throne. Jake, we need to discuss the hegemony situation, the Emperor said. Their envoys will arrive next week. What's their concern? Jake asked. They believe our new cooperative approach is making us weak. They think other species should fear galactic powers, not work with them as equals. Intelligence Director Yixara stepped forward. The hegemony rules through intimidation and strict control. Our success with cooperation threatens their entire philosophy of government. So they're worried that their own people might want the same freedoms, Jake said. Exactly, the Emperor replied. Dr. Williams looked up from her notes. The psychological profile suggests they're operating from a position of insecurity. They maintain power through fear because they don't believe they can maintain it through competence. That's a dangerous mindset, Jake said. Insecure leaders make bad decisions. The Emperor nodded. What do you suggest? Jake thought for a moment. Same thing we did with Admiral Thexera and Commander Veltar. Invite them for coffee and find out what they really want. Chancellor Dexmill looked worried. The hegemony envoys are not known for reasonable conversation. They prefer demands and threats. Then we'll show them something different, Jake said. People respond to how they're treated. If we treat them as equals and potential friends, they might surprise us. A week later, the hegemony delegation arrived in a massive black ship that looked like it was designed to scare people. The envoys themselves were tall, pale beings who wore dark uniforms and moved like soldiers. Their leader was Ambassador Kralthek, a veteran diplomat known for turning negotiations into surrenders. He expected to meet with Emperor Zarthol in the formal throne room, surrounded by imperial guards and ceremony. Instead, he found himself in a comfortable conference room with Jake Morrison, drinking coffee and looking at engineering diagrams. This is highly irregular, Ambassador Kralthek said stiffly. Where is the Emperor? Where is the formal protocol? The Emperor is reviewing the new trade agreements with the Outer Rim territories, Jake explained. He asked me to meet with you first. I hope that's okay. You are not imperial nobility. You are not even from this galaxy. Why should I negotiate with you? Jake sipped his coffee. Because I'm the one who helped stop the Civil War, improved the imperial government efficiency by 40%, and designed the new interstellar cooperation treaties. But mostly because I make really good coffee. Ambassador Kralthek stared at him. You did all that? With lots of help, Jake said modestly. The Emperor and his people are really smart. They just needed someone to suggest trying a different approach. Dr. Williams entered the room carrying her research notes. Ambassador Kralthek, I've been studying hegemony culture. Your species has a remarkable history of technological innovation. The gravitational manipulation technology you developed is centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. The ambassador looked surprised. Most diplomats focused on military strength or territorial disputes. No one ever complimented the hegemony's scientific achievements. Our scientists are adequate, he said carefully. Adequate? Dr. Williams said with excitement. Your people invented artificial gravity. That's incredible. I'd love to meet with your researchers sometime. Alex Rodriguez looked up from the engineering diagrams he was studying. The power distribution systems on your ships are fascinating. How did you solve the quantum resonance problem? Ambassador Kralthek found himself explaining technical details instead of making threats. These humans were treating the hegemony like colleagues instead of enemies. Your government structure is interesting too, Jake said. Very efficient for quick decision-making. But doesn't the centralized control create bottlenecks for local issues? Sometimes, the ambassador admitted, but centralized control ensures order and stability. That's true, Jake agreed. But you could probably get the same stability with less work if you gave local leaders more authority over local problems. Keep the central control for big decisions, but let people handle their own day-to-day issues. Danny Cooper appeared with a coffee pot and a plate of sandwiches. Lunch, anyone? Ambassador, I looked at the technical specs for your capital city. The urban planning is really impressive, but you could improve traffic flow with some simple modifications to the transport grid. By the end of the day, Ambassador Kralthek was sitting around a table with humans and imperial officials, discussing practical solutions to problems that had bothered the hegemony for years. This is not how diplomatic meetings usually proceed, he said. How do they usually go? Jake asked. Threats, demands, formal agreements that no one really likes but everyone accepts to avoid war. That sounds exhausting, Jake said. Why not just figure out what everyone wants and find ways to give it to them? It cannot be that simple. It usually is, Jake replied. People want safety, prosperity, and respect. If you can provide those things, most other problems solve themselves. 3 months later, the hegemony signed their first cooperative treaty with the Empire. Instead of competing for territory, they began sharing technology and resources. Ambassador Kraltek became a regular visitor to the Imperial Palace. He claimed he came for diplomatic reasons, but everyone knew he really came for the coffee and the engineering discussions. The changes spread beyond the Empire and the hegemony. Other galactic powers began adopting similar approaches. Wars became rare. Trade flourished. Scientific progress accelerated as different species shared their knowledge. Jake Morrison found himself with a new job title: Galactic Diplomatic Coordinator. It was a fancy name for what he had been doing all along, helping people solve problems by talking to each other. Any regrets about missing Proxima Centauri? Lisa Chen asked him one morning as they reviewed the latest progress reports. Jake looked out at the busy spaceport outside his office window. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came and went, carrying goods, people, and ideas across the galaxy. Not really, he said with a smile. This turned out much more interesting. Dr. Williams walked in with her daily research report. The cultural exchange programs are exceeding all expectations. We've identified at least 50 new areas where different species can learn from each other. Any problems? Jake asked. Just one. The Stellar Confederation wants to know if you can help them resolve a trade dispute with the Outer Rim Alliance. Jake finished his coffee and stood up. Sure. What time is their shuttle arriving?